Good morning. Hope you guys are having a fabulous, marvelous Monday, right? Starting out our week in amazing ways, kicking off our first full week. Well, I guess this is actually our second week, right, in our wonderful series. And I was praying, I was discerning this morning on, last week I separated it up, the two different books. And it was funny because through my prayer, as I was preparing, God was like, no, you're not supposed to separate. So this morning's video is going to be the two books actually combined. So again, a real quick reminder of the two books that we are going through is The Slow Down Diet, as well as Fearless, okay? So we're going to kind of dig into the first the first chapter of each of these books, kind of go through both of them a little bit simultaneously, a little bit together. But the focus for this week is about understanding breathing, relaxation, and understanding who our enemy is, all right? So we're going to first grab a drop of Breathe, put a drop in your hand, and you're going to understand as we read through the chapter. I'm going to grab a drop of Lime. Okay. And then we're going to rub. So 3 times, right? I love my oils. I don't know about you guys, but I love my oils. All right, so week 1, the Slow Down Diet. So here he talks about how understanding that during stress, the body automatically shifts into the classic fight or flight response. In the moment of stress response is activated, the digestive system shuts down. We need to understand that just because we eat something in a hurry doesn't mean that our body will assimilate it any faster. That you can eat the healthiest meal, but if you eat it in an anxious state, your digestion is dramatically diminished. Your mood has affected your food. I want you to really sit with that for a moment. And that's part of the reason why I had us choose the oil of Breathe for this week, because breathe through your meals, right? Breathe through your snacks. Understanding a little bit about CNS, which is our central nervous system, and ANS, which is our autonomic nervous system. All right, so the ANS tells our body when not to digest. All right, and this is key and it's important because when the parasympathetic nervous system is active, then our digestion is on and our stress response is off and our body is relaxed. When the sympathetic nervous system is active, our digestion is turned off and our stress response is on and our body is in fight or flight. So why is this important? Because being in the ideal state to digest and assimilate food is the other half of our nutritional needs, our body's needs. So things that we need to also think about that can be burdens and stresses to our body is lots of different ailments, and that our body, when it's constantly fighting to have time to just breathe in our food, then things like our hydrochloric acid gets out of whack, our thyroid hormones get out of whack, our food sensitivities and allergies become more erratic, insulin resistance, risk to osteoporosis, our oxidative stress, just all these different things get out of whack. So we need to start really understanding that our metabolic power of relaxation is how when we are eating in a natural state, it is necessary for our parasympathetic dominance to be able to yield a breakthrough with our food and our metabolism. So we can look at the French for a really good example for this, of being able to be, lessons in stopping and breathing through eating. So the French take a few hours for lunch. They drink a generous amount of red wine. They eat lots of high-fat foods. Their proportions tend to be smaller, and their mid-meal is the largest. But they're fanatics about fresh foods and high-quality ingredients. They don't exercise nearly as much as we do, and they celebrate during their meals. All right, they consume significantly a higher percentage of dietary fat per capita. Yet, scientists have reasoned that there was, so here they're talking about how the French have less heart disease, lower blood cholesterol, all these different things, and it just didn't make any sense. So scientists were trying to figure out, well, maybe it has to do with the properties within red wine, right? So of course there was this whole big thing that went on for several years of being able to take the resveratrol and bottling it up, right? Put it in a pill form or a bottle form. And that wasn't proving anything. The big picture that was getting missed was that the French, they slow down during their eating. They take time, they relax, they celebrate, they acknowledge the deep human need to dine. So key things to remember is that a stressed eater equals a sympathetic dominance, equals digestive shutdown. A relaxed eater equals a parasympathetic dominance, which equals full digestive force. So think about when we're on vacation, right? We're much more relaxed, and we can eat lots of things that we don't normally eat, and it doesn't seem to bother us. We tend to not even necessarily gain weight, or we stay at a copacetic state. I remember the first time I ever went on a cruise with my in-laws. Josephine was 5 at the time, and I remember them saying, now beware, you guys are going to gain weight because everybody gains weight when they go on a cruise, and this and that, blah blah. My husband and I, we actually lost weight. One, because we chose to not do the elevator at all. We always did all the steps, which was crazy, but it was lots of fun. But we were in a constant state of relaxation. We never were eating on the run. We ate, we sat, we relaxed, we drank, we did all sorts of things. And even 3 years ago, during the height of my thyroid storm, when I was extremely sensitive to lots and lots of foods and lots of different things, and we went on a cruise again with my in-laws and my brother-in-law and sister-in-law and all the family, I was able to eat things that were not AIP friendly, and it still not create a flare in my system, because again, I was in a relaxed state of presence with my body and with my food, with all of that. So that just goes to show the power of our mind and the power of being in that relaxed state. So we need to understand the gift of time, to commit to providing ourselves the gift of more time at each meal, to give ourselves at least 30 minutes for lunch and dinner, to see if we can increase it to an hour, to eat only in the sitting position. How many of us walk around the kitchen or walk around the house with either a snack bar or even a shake? One of the big things, people like nutritional shakes because they're quick, they're on the go and whatnot. But our body is still not able to take in all the nutrients from that. So even if you're just going to have a protein shake or a nutritional shake of some sort, sit with it, breathe with it, enjoy what you're taking in. So let's see. So some things to be thinking about. Do you live a hurried life? Are you always eating on warp speed? Chronic stress can increase the output of insulin, and that's going to make our body more resistant to relaxing, more resistant and sensitive to sugary things, to starchy things. So something that we need to think about also is worrying about fat increases fat. Anxiety about weight loss causes your body to put fat on and retain it. That's really key, really important, that where our, again, we've been talking about where our mind goes, so goes our heart, so goes our body. When we're relaxed, we're actually building our bones, all right? So this might sound kind of crazy, but understanding that when we're stressed, we're losing calcium, which means we're losing our bone density. There was a study that was done, a New England Journal of Medicine study, that showed that conclusively that bone health and mental health go hand in hand. That there was some calcium excretors that included caffeine, alcohol, air pollution, excess sugar, excess animal proteins, stearic acid. Those are things that are found in colas, but those all contributed also to our bone health. But the big thing was stress. So we need to make sure that we're eating in a relaxed state, that our bones need more than just nutrition. They need to be nourished. They need us to be able to relax. So our primary task this week is, I don't want us to get all freaky about what foods to be eating or not to be eating, but to instead transform our eating habits into being slow. So have kind of a secret contest, whether you're eating with family, whether you're eating with friends, but hold a contest that whoever finishes the meal last is the winner. And that's your internal contest. I know I will a lot of times sit down at the table with my family, and my husband, my husband and I, we met in the military, and so he definitely eats very similar to the military, of where, you take your food and you take it down as fast as you possibly can. And it can sometimes just, I can find myself wanting to keep up pace for pace with him, and I have to just stop and breathe. And some things that I do intentionally is I'll take my fork or my spoon and I will put it down, even though I might have exactly the right, combination of flavors and stuff all geared up and ready on my fork and on my spoon. I will put it down and know that, okay, I will rebuild that bite. And sometimes we think about foods that we have to hold, how we have it just in the right position, and if we put it down, it's going to all fall apart. That's okay. That's okay. Allow it to just sit on the plate. Enjoy the bites. Take as many chewing moments as you can to just allow it to just get into your system. So rather than focusing on what you're eating, it's time to get really clear on how to eat. So let's see. I like how he talks about the lifestyle inventory. Do you tend to eat more when you're feeling anxious? What are some of the circumstances around when you're eating? Do you feel full after a stressful eating, or do you still feel hungry? How much time do you take for you to repast during stressful eating episodes? Do you taste your food? Do you chew it much, or do you shovel it down? He talks about vitamin T, which is time for meals, to just really take the time. Don't even do learning videos. Don't read anything. I like to sit at this particular table. It's my breakfast table because I can look out to my backyard and watch the animals, watch the birds. Sometimes I will stand in my kitchen, but it's usually because I'm just processing and thinking things out. But I make sure I take deep breaths in between each bite, each sip. I do that even with my tea, just to keep myself in that practice. One of the quotes that he writes here, that he highlights, is the royal road to shortcut the physiological stress response and bring you to relaxed, slow eating is conscious breathing. So to just like we talked about, conscious breathing. So even if it means using your breathe oil with it to remind you to breathe, okay? To check in and breathe anytime, to consciously adopt the deep and rhythmic breathing pattern characteristics. This allows your body to be in a relaxed state for your central nervous system. Breathe in more oxygen. When you breathe in more oxygen, you're burning food more fully. The more we eat, the more the body naturally wants to breathe. The simple rule here is this: if you eat more, breathe more. On any given day, approximately 60 million Americans are on a diet. That's kind of sad, huh? The simple act of eating by itself raises our metabolism. So why, the point that he talks about with being on a diet is that neither extreme too much food or too little food will take you where you want to go. That when we're not breathing through our eating, and that we're not just enjoying the moment, that it doesn't matter how little or how much you eat, your body is not going to gather the nutrients that it needs from that food. Plenty of people restrict their eating intake, but no one goes on an oxygen diet. I like this. The entire process of digestion is designed to break food down into microscopic morsels that can be sent to your cells and combust with oxygen for energy release. Without oxygen, your food is literally useless. Metabolism is oxygen, and oxygen comes from breathing. When you breathe more, you burn more. So your exercise for this week is to breathe during your meals, to increase your breath intake during eating at least 3 times during any meal, that you ask yourself, how is my breathing? All right, deep breathe 3 times at each pause. And to slow down your breath, this will increase your metabolic speed. So again, when I find myself trying to pace myself to my husband, I stop, I put things down, and I breathe, and I take in the conversation. I actually then make sure that we're talking, that we, produce conversation, that we have a family tradition where we play a game during mealtime, so that it makes the meal go longer, so that we're all just kind of, relaxed and not focusing so much on to quickly get dinner done. This really helps my husband slow down, so that then therefore the rest of us slows down. Another simple way that you can increase your oxygen intake and hence your metabolism is opening a window. Many of us hunger for oxygen but mistake it as hunger for food. So again, now the rule of thumb, if you think you're hungry, you're not sure, to drink lots of water and to see if it's really that you're thirsty, maybe you're hungry for oxygen. So finally, with this book, the way we do food is the way we do life. I really like this quote. Slowing down with meals then is symbolic of relaxing into our body, our career, our fears and desires, and anything life presents. The sanctity of self-care. All right, so slowing down helps us diminish those fears, which segues us perfectly into the Fearless book. And so she quotes here, I feared being criticized, unseen, unloved, marginalized, ridiculed. I worried and obsessed about failure, worthlessness, aloneness, disappointment, death, parenting my own child. I was anxious and terrified. How many times when we sit down to eat, or when we're cooking something, or we're grabbing something from the pantry, or we're grocery shopping, are we afraid we're not picking the right thing, or we're not eating the right thing? There's so much great information out there these days, right? There's also so many conflicting and confusing information. So we can get caught up in a frenzy of fearing that we're not doing it right. And we need to remember that fear is not from the Lord. I really like this quote that Sonia Corbett writes is, maybe Satan's greatest achievement in these times has been to make us believe that he does not exist and that all can be fixed on a purely human level. Yet spirit is real. Spirit is the basis of all reality. So for God did not give us a spirit of timidity, but a spirit of power and love and self-control. Fear is rooted in this spiritual realm. It is the deepest root. Fear is a spiritual battle with the spiritual enemy. And we need to really remember that I just heard this week, and it was so great, from a priest. He was saying how the enemy is lazy. And I had to think and ponder on that for a moment. But in a way he is, because he knows how he doesn't invent or create anything. He uses and steals everything, right? So he understands the Bible, he knows the Bible. So he knows how to be able to twist it on us. He knows our fears, our wants, our desires. So he knows how to twist it. So we have to remember that this verse of 2 Timothy 1:7 is a promise that the spirit of fear does not come from God, all right? And from Ephesians 6:12, for we are not contending against flesh and blood, but against the principalities, against the powers, against the world rulers of this present darkness, against the spiritual hosts of wickedness in the heavenly places. Fear comes from the enemy. So anytime you find yourself fearing that the food that you're eating is not going to help you, cast it away. Renounce it. However you are most comfortable with. Whether it is visually out loud saying, go away, Satan. You are not welcome here. I know that God can redeem anything, and even if this food is not absolutely perfect, I'm going to enjoy it, and it will nourish my body because God can ensure that, right? Does it mean that we're casting away our responsibilities of eating wholesome, healthy choices? No. It means that we're not allowing the enemy to get inside of our skin and to dispel fear, to create, discontent with our choices and with living a fearless freedom life, right? See, there was a quote, that I really liked. There's a lot in this chapter that, oh my goodness, was just jam-packed full of amazing information. But I dog-eared this page. So here she talks about the falling of the angels. Fallen or evil angels have the skill, intelligence, and desire to attract human imagination to the fantastic, first as a distraction and ultimately as the door to more serious evil and dangers. She talks about different paranormal stuff that can distract us, falsely present to us as harmless. Let's see. So remembering that the devil is not one person. The devil is an organized battalion of malice. That he can't do what he does on his own. Really and truly. From Josiah 1:14, because God gave us unconditionally free will, an evil spirit cannot produce in us something that is against our will or that was not already there, either actively or potentially. So remembering that we have a will, we have choices. So when we stop and pause and remember to breathe with our eating, then we're being mindful with our choices, right? We're being mindful of knowing that we are able to overcome our fears. We are able to get that vitamin O of oxygen, that vitamin T of time. Let's see what else that I think would be really helpful for this particular week for us. She talks about the rebellion a lot in this chapter. It's really cool understanding. We'll talk a little bit here about how from Genesis in verse 1 God creates. And then something awful happened in verse 2. Before God fills creation with life, he then separates some sort of non-material light and darkness, verse 4. In this passage, Augustine and Aquinas see in the darkness and light the good and evil angels. The actual roots and meanings of the language means to indicate the same. The angelic rebellion, therefore, seems to have occurred almost immediately after their creation. Still, there's that pesky quotation from St. Augustine, "Never fight evil as though it were something that arose totally outside of yourself." The great military strategist Sun Tzu argues or agrees, "If you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the results of 100 battles. If you know yourself but not the enemy, for every victory gained, you will also suffer a defeat. If you know neither the enemy nor yourself, you will succumb in every battle." So what we need to understand is to know ourself. When we know ourself, we are able to truly battle the enemy. All right, when we know ourselves, when we're stopping and breathing through our meals, then we are knowing that we are loving ourselves. We are not trying to hide. We're not trying to run. We're not freezing in a moment. We are truly nourishing our body when we pause and think, okay, am I choosing this Twinkie just because it seems like fun right now? And if that's the reason, then that's okay. I'm going to breathe through every bite of this Twinkie, and I'm going to truly enjoy it. But if we cram it down, are we cramming it down because we find shame and we feel like we shouldn't be eating it? Are we trying to hide from something? Or is it just what we think is going to fill us up in that moment because of emotions or because we think we are hungry? What are we really hungry for is the question. I like how she writes on page 18, living in fear or pervasive sin simply because you have neglected to even acknowledge the battle. Are you living in fear or pervasive sin simply because you have neglected to even acknowledge the battle? So pop quizzes that God can give us is to practice what he's teaching, to constantly ask him, help us keep our eyes open so that we aren't caught off guard, so that in the moment when we're frustrated with family situations or with work or with our body, we don't go to the pantry and just start shoving things, or we don't not eat out of punishment. All right, so really think about that. Food can be to the extremes. We can choose to fast for spiritual reasons, but in the back of our head, it's really to punish ourselves. We need to really fine-tune and get real with God about why we eat or don't eat, and what are our reasons, what are our emotions behind our choices. I really like this. 1 Corinthians 10:13. No temptation has overtaken you that is not common to man. God is faithful, and he will not let you be tempted beyond your strength, but with the temptation will also provide the way of escape, that you may be able to endure it. So remember, where God closes a door, he always opens a window. All right? So this week's scripture focus is Philippians 4:13. I can do all things in him who strengthens me. All right, and I will make sure that I post several different scriptures, but that one I want us to really focus on that, and remembering that we can breathe in his strength because he's there to armor us and to guide us. We need to have no fear. We need never fear the fallen angels, because baptism has washed and purified us of all sin and all eternal punishment for sin. Sin is a choice. It will trap you in fear, anxiety, and depression, ultimately destroy you. Jesus has given us the power and authority to stop sinning, for sin will have no dominion over you, since you are not under law but under grace. Romans 6:12-14 is emphasized in this book. So what does sin have to do with any of this? You know, I grew up and there was a distortion with sugar. It was in our household, sugar was touted as evil, as it was bad. And if we chose to partake in sugar outside of the home or even sneak it into the home, we were sinning. So the sin was that we were being disobedient, yes. But we need to understand food is neither good nor bad. Food is benign. Food can have greater nutritional value. Some foods, right? A Twinkie is going to have less nutritional value than a salad, a deep leafy salad, right? Or an apple. Let's give that as a comparison. A Twinkie has less value than a Granny Smith apple, right? But that Twinkie's not bad, and that apple's not good. Because if you're eating that apple in a stressed state of mind, in fear, then it's not helping your body. If you're eating that Twinkie in the most relaxed state of mind and you're relishing in giggling with your child over, you know, a quiz or over something that they accomplished, it actually can be just okay for your body, right? Even in a autoimmune conditioned state. Again, it's about our mind. Now, again, does it mean that Twinkie is something that we should do all the time? No. But again, it's our choices of being able to really breathe in and not have fear with our choices, all right? And remembering that food is not good or bad. It's not evil. It is something that is either more nutritionally dense or less nutritionally, right? That's all it is. And the more we breathe through our food choices, the more we're able to strengthen our relationship with ourselves and with our God. So in review, fear is not of God, all right? Fear is a matter of spiritual warfare. Remembering that fear is an attack on love. We need to acknowledge that by the virtue of our baptism, we are in a spiritual battle with a spiritual enemy. Our worst enemy is not Satan, but sin. So again, going back to how can sin even relate to any of this? The sin comes in when we punish ourselves, right? When we, whether it's overeating and becoming gluttonous, or even starving ourselves, which is also gluttonous, because we are thinking that we are not worthy of food if we're punishing ourselves, all right? And we can get caught up and consumed in those thoughts that can actually become gluttonous, where we start becoming gluttonous in the sense of consuming everything else to not consume food, all right? Consuming books, consuming exercise, becoming gluttonous with exercise, gluttonous with our TV time, gluttonous with so many different things, right? So that's where sin can come in, that understanding that, again, food isn't sinful. It's how we treat it, how we are with our lives that can be sinful, and that we need to make sure that we're not allowing the muckiness, our wounds, our junk, to allow the enemy to clutch on that and to continue to wound us, to then repeat any sins that doesn't bring us to the light, right? Because rebellion is sin, rebellion introduces disorder that causes fear. think about all of the disorder, especially with food. We have so many different food disorders, and just disordered eating. You know, somebody might say, well, I'm not bulimic, I've never thrown up, or I'm not anorexic, you know, this and that. But even having a disordered mindset towards food is disordered eating. All right, whether you starve yourself or whether you partake too much in something, even when you know that it's not helping you at that moment, that it's really not what your soul, your spirit needs or wants, that's when we're allowing sin to rule us. We're allowing our wounds to rule us, our emotions, rather than turning to God. God has given us the word as our offensive weapon. So this week, I want you to really look into the Bible. I'm going to definitely be sharing lots of different scriptures, but find the one that really resonates with you and put it on your mirror, put it, you know, somewhere, put it on a piece of paper, on your journal, wherever, so that you're constantly reminded it. Even set a phone alarm to where every hour on that alarm, it pops up that Bible scripture. How cool is that, right? So something to think about also is what in your life is chaotic and confusing about food, all right? And really get real with yourself about that. And above all, remember to do not fear the evil snares of the enemy, because in the end, he is powerless, where a soul that is very dear to Jesus is concerned. So therefore, be at peace. So be at peace with your food choices this week. Don't have fear. Just breathe through your food choices this week. And we'll start getting more and more into the nitty-gritty next week. You guys have a beautiful and blessed week, and I look forward to visiting and sharing more throughout the week and popping back on next Monday. All right, take care and God bless.